Sydney, Australia, the nation's largest city, a bustling metropolis of around 3 million people. In an age when man is finding himself with more and more leisure time, the 20th century brings to each the opportunity to ply one's profession and pursue whatever pastime chosen. From a group of people of diversified occupations emerges a common ground, a unity of interest. For these are the men who crew on Arthur Burns' Silesia II, 48 feet of ocean racing thoroughbred. 9 men and a boat, who, together with some 400 other men and 60 other boats, will contest Australia's Blue Water Classic, the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. Arthur Burn has literally lost count of how much money he's spent to make Silesia the finest and fastest afloat. When she's not on the slips, having every ripple removed from her sleek hull, the crew are attending to the 1,001 pieces of equipment which make up an ocean racer, or polishing their own performances on a training run. Checking, rechecking, training and tuning for the boat and the men. In the competitive world of first-class ocean racing, fitness is a must. Every sinew, every ounce of muscle is needed when the going is rough. And even aluminium can weigh like lead when you're on your feet for 12 hours. This year's Hobart race is the final selection trial for the 1971 Admiral's Cup team to represent Australia at Cowes in England. Silesia is vying for selection with top-notch boats like her sister ship, Ragamuffin, a previous Admiral's Cup contestant. The 57-footer from Western Australia, Apollo, is here to press her claim for selection. The former French boat Pasha, now extensively re-rigged and modified by Cruising Yacht Club Commodore Bob Crichton-Brown. Peter Cole's brand new Bacardi, a 43-foot sloop built to Cole's own design. And her sister ships, the red-hulled Rum Runner and Jeff Lee's Taurus. From Melbourne comes Victoria, a Sparkman and Stevens design launched only a few weeks before the race. Patrice, an English hull, rigged and fitted out locally for Ray Kirby. Norman Ridge wants Coomaloo selected again. In 1969, she represented with Ragamuffin and Mercedes 3, trying for 3 Admiral's Cups in a row. Former Admiral's Cup boat Balandra, now sailed by the Army. Neil McAllister has once again brought his Starfire of Perth, 2,400 miles to the starting line. The mighty Buccaneer from New Zealand, the world's biggest plywood yacht, received her final tuning from owner Tom Clark and his crew as she crossed the Tasman Sea. Spirit, the lone entry from the United States, joins the assembling fleet in the final preparations as race day draws near. The Caltex radio relay ship Barley High will once again accompany the fleet and provide up-to-the-minute information on race progress. As the city celebrates Christmas Day, the yachts lay in readiness for the journey ahead. Boxing Day, dull and overcast, with a forecast for northeasterly winds to speed the 61 contestants southward. The yachts are provisioned for the journey ahead and the final checks are made of equipment. As always, a host of friends and well-wishers gathers at the Cruising Yacht Club to inspect the boats and wish the crews bon voyage. 61 entries, 18 down on last year's record fleet, but representing the cream of ocean racing. The yachts make their way from their berths in Rushcutters Bay to join with those from moorings all over Sydney Harbour and mingle with the ever-growing flotilla of spectator craft out to get a close-up view of the contestants. Spectator craft come in large, medium, and small. In fact, anything that will float gathers on the harbour on this day to farewell the Hobart fleet. Arriving to fire the shot that will send the yachts on their way is Sir Frank Packard of America's Cup fame. Although the preparation of the yachts has been underway for many weeks, there's always that last-minute item that requires attention. As the minutes tick away, the race fleet jockeys for clear breeze and a favourable position behind the starting line. In the race down the harbour, it's Apollo and the giant Buccaneer who set the pace, hotly pursued by the innumerable spectator craft. A spectator-laden ferry gets a close-up view of Pasha as she sneaks past. Up ahead, Apollo appears to have a slight edge over Buccaneer in the race for the heads. Ragamuffin and Silesia have started a private duel, which is to last the entire race. Apollo crosses ahead of Buccaneer, and this is all the advantage she needs for the honour of being first through the heads. The race for line honours between these two giants of the fleet is well and truly on. The remainder of the fleet are not far behind, and pushing out through the heads, they welcome the freedom of the open sea. As the spectator craft are left further behind, the fleet settles down for the 640-mile dash southward. As the yachts make the open sea, the conditions favor the larger boats. Buccaneer and Apollo revel in the slight seas and easterly breeze. Every square inch of sail is pressed into service as they run down the coast and out to sea. Will eventually swing to the northeast, and for 2 days the yachts will enjoy a downhill run that carries them south of the mainland and well into Bass Strait. The fickle moods of Bass Strait once again cast their frustrations upon the fleet. Silesia finds light headwinds and a drizzle of rain as she searches for the forecast southerly change. Some have the dregs of the dying northerly. Others have just enough to maintain steerage way. Others have nothing, and all that can be done is sit and wait. Eventually the southerly arrives, and one by one the scattered fleet pick up the breeze and romp southward. Pasha joins the race for line honours with Buccaneer. Apollo and Spirit have suffered rudder damage in the hard northerly and have been forced to withdraw. The Army have found their sea legs on Valandra and are pushing the big boat along. The breeze is expected to freshen from the south, but in the meantime, the fleet make the most of the pleasant conditions. The strengthening of the breeze brings the warning of what is to come. The next few hours were to bring some of the weather that has given the race the reputation of being one of the toughest in the world. Eilina realizes the potential hazard and is quick to shorten sail as the storm mounts in intensity. Some of the worst conditions in the 26-year history of the race, the reports come through from the Caltex radio relay ship Barley High to the press center at the Cruising Yacht Club. The 60-knot wind blowing up from the Antarctic was to force a record total of 14 retirements from the race. Thunderbolt and Boam Billy dismasting. Rum Runner caught by a huge wave and rolled right over. Hulls split open, rigging and sails disintegrate. The strict safety regulations of the Cruising Yacht Club once again prove their worth, and not one serious injury is reported. Some of the retirements seek the sanctuary of the Tasmanian coast at St. Helens, where the white water over the sandbar entrance is less formidable than the seas outside. Finding their way up the estuary to the quiet waters beyond, they lick their wounds and make repairs. In Hobart, attention turns to the battle for line honours. The gale has robbed Buccaneer of her chance to break the race record, and Pasha has closed to within 6 miles of her. The population awaits the outcome of the gamble with the elements, which the remainder of the fleet are waging. As another night closes over the city, the results will soon be known. Out of the rain-torn darkness comes Buccaneer to take line honours. A great performance by an untried boat in her first major ocean race. Three and a half hours later, Pasha surges home. She will be the boat to beat for handicap honours, and it remains to be seen if any other finishers can make up their time on her. Empty Constitution dock is a dismal but welcome sight to her crew. Ragamuffin is next across, failing to catch Pasha on corrected time by 5.5 minutes. Out of the mist comes Salacia after her neck-and-neck struggle with Ragamuffin. She'll have to settle for third place on corrected time. It's a wet and weary crew who join in a hot toddy to celebrate a race well run and to toast the remainder of the fleet still battling down the coast to Tasman Island. It's the following evening before Taurus leads the next group over the line. The miserable conditions fail to dampen the enthusiasm of crowds lining the finish to welcome the boats in. Coomaloo arrives next, and not far behind her, Melbourne's Victoria, its gleaming hull unmistakable in the darkness. Bacardi, Matika and Balandra creep home in the early hours, and morning finds the bulk of the fleet in Storm Bay heading for the finish. morning mischief is in the Derwent River and approaching the finishing line with a wet but happy crew. A sister ship to last year's winner, Morning Cloud, she will take handicap honours in Division 2 and finish 8th overall. Tina of Melbourne and Patsy are having a drifting match within sight of the finish, both waiting for the zephyr that will carry them across. Tina finds breeze and scurries home, leaving Patsy to struggle across the line a minute and a half later. With the fleet all accounted for, the Caltex radio relay ship Bali High comes up the Derwent to find yachts battling with the light breeze and outgoing tide. Madaya, back in familiar hometown waters, will finish second to Matika in the 1-ton Cup division. As the last weary crews and tired boats ghost their way up to the finish at Battery Point, Bali High joins the others in Constitution Dock, where, regardless of the weather, crews can bask in the warmth of Hobart's hospitality. Wet sails and clothing are hung out to dry, and on board each boat, the people of Hobart can hear the race rerun 100 times. Constitution Dock resounds to the popping of cans and the melee of merriment as the celebrations of the victors and the vanquished unfold on this normally quiet Tasmanian capital. On board, arch rivals of yesterday play host to one another. The intense competition is for a time forgotten, and a toast is shared to this year's winner. Congratulations go to Pasha, her crew, and to skipper Bob Crichton-Brown.
After all the years we've tried, we have at last won a Hobart race. I imagine that all owners and skippers and crews who sail in this race would regard this as the greatest moment, being up here collecting this hardware. But from my point of view, it's been the culmination of tremendously hard work on the part of my crew. And in this area I'm indeed blessed, because had it not been for them, I certainly wouldn't have been up here at this moment.
The race has been run and won. For the losers, it's back to the drawing board. 12 months to replan and rethink. They'll be back next year and the year after, for as long as it takes to bring themselves to that peak of performance that will win them Australia's greatest ocean race.